provided evidence that it entered this country. Now, the Auditor General in his report further goes to say that all these amounts cannot be attached to not even one project. And actually, even in his conclusion, the Treasury, what were these monies so-called used for? The Treasury says that these funds are fungible. In other words, they're interchangeable. In other words, they admitted they are breaking the law. That is just one Eurobond of $2 billion. One did not come here. They subsequently took another 5. Please take note. They subsequently took another 7 in syndicated loans. We cannot find anywhere in our budget, in our books. Now, Kenyans, are we going to continually accept that we are going to become slaves and have agreed to become slaves, because this is what is called modern day slavery now and for generations to come? The perpetuating our poverty and our slavery. In the old days, slavery was something that was done with chains put to our hands and our feet. That is what is happening here with this debt. Debt has now been used by our own oligarchs, our own people in power, has been perpetuated to ensure that we are slaves to them in perpetuity. You can complain about the finance bill today or tomorrow, which are tax-raising measures, but we are going down so fast as a nation. The poverty rates are increasing by the day because of one item. Anything that is collected from us is going to others, and it never came to our use. And it's going in such large amounts. It is strangling us. It is finishing us for generations to come. And my proposal has been very clear. What is not in our laws, what does not exist in our constitution, is not liable to the sovereign. We are not and should not pay it. We must cut this chain off our neck. We must remove it. And those who put us in this mess must pay the ultimate price of justice for the people of Kenya, because they have caused havoc to our lives. We have said continually that this regime will not change it because it was part and parcel of doing what we are suffering. They are not going to hang themselves. So William Ruto should not pretend that he can set up a task force to come and whitewash what he knows he is capable to. He is not going to tell us that we will not accept. This is a fraud of monumental proportions. We are unlike other countries that have had to shut down because of debt. Ours we do not have. And I can tell you, with all the sums we have paid, my faculty, if we remove that debt from our books, I can tell you have a reduction of taxation and you'll have money in your pockets like you've never seen before. But people are hostage to their own creations. And we must reach a stage now where we say we are going to cut off. We are not going to be anybody's link. And those who are perpetuating it must face justice. And those foreigners who have been part of this, who have been perpetuating this, who know what they are doing to our demise as a country, we will also follow you. We will look for you. You are criminals. You have aided. You shall be found even in Kenya. And those who are protecting them, please. We used to have big friends. The West have been good friends of Kenya in the past. Why do you want us to be your slaves? We are just as good, if not better than you. We deserve more, and we are not going to take this nonsense anymore. So my fellow Kenyans, we start with our own. Those who are perpetuating our slavery in something called domestic culprits, those oligarchs, must be dealt with now. Tomorrow, the day after that, go take your money from those banks. Tell them they are not at liberty to continue your slavery. Tell those banks that decide they are going to put money in bonds and bills to our detriment, bonds and bills, money that does not enter the consolidated fund, money that is going to buy bullets to kill our children, that we cannot account for. We are not going to agree anymore. Stop them and tell them that you are going to go and greet them if they perpetuate this mentality. But now that they have done it and they have sunk us, take your money back. Tell them that are not perpetuating your slavery. Let us start at home and we shall deal with the rest one after the other. Asanteni sana, Eric.
All right.
Yes, loud and clear.
So you have the means. What are you doing in your position to ensure that justice on this economic fraud is given to Kenyans? Because Kenyans right now are unable to put money in their pockets.
That's correct, Amerix. And I can tell you, they will not be able to get rid of these people from power. Anybody that has aided and abetted this must get out of power. We must have a fresh broom. They must be removed from power because they will never accept they were part of creating it. So we must get power. That is number one. And this is the only way. I want to congratulate those who are doing it. I want to say categorically here, I condole with the soldiers, the fallen soldiers of this revolution. Give commendations from a government that understands that you are heroes of this republic. We must cut off this chain, and it comes by cutting off these people in power. They must exit power. That is number one. You wonder what law they follow. There are people who are taking up cases in Paris and in London, right, for various aspects of this debt. Human rights lawyers who are doing so out of this. It is not about one or two issues, items. It is not about others saving us. It is not about just Jimmy Wanjigi. It is about us collectively saying it is to our demise to continue this. It must be all of us saying we are not going to agree. We are not born to be slaves, and their children to be even worse slaves than they were. We must say no, and we must collectively come together and agree that that can only come with a dynamic shift that we are seeing today. This is a moment that is earth-shaking for this republic. We use it and do it properly. We will never be chained. We will see greatness in this nation, and you'll see us stretch this wave beyond the borders of this land. And you shall see somebody called the Great Kenyan that will be more prominent than you're seeing those Western nations. But we must get rid of this chain. This is our chain. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter which way you move, if you do not remove this chain, we are done. There's no other solution. You can talk about all other things you want to talk, but I can tell you this chain, we are moving nowhere. And anybody telling you they can perform will not perform if they are not talking about removing this chain. All the rest is balderdash. It is lies. You have to remove this chain, and we do not own it. We do not have it. So we are educating, Amerix. We are educating. We've taken 2 years. We spent money doing this forensic audit. We are educating. We are talking. We keep speaking. When I first started speaking, I remember people saying, but who understands all these figures, all these terminologies? Kenyans are not about the economy. They want to hear us. I said, one day, Kenya will be about issue orientation. Issues are going to drive their politics, not tribalism. Issues, their lives, their collective lives as a great Kenyans is going to drive them. So I will keep educating. I will keep informing. And you can write me off all you want, but I'll keep speaking. One day, somebody will hear. Because this pain will not stop. It can only grow. I've given you the figures this financial year, the next financial year, the year after that. And this is even more thereafter. This pain will continue because there's also something else it has set in. There are two evil, just to digress a bit in economics. It's called recession and inflation. So at the beginning of the year, everybody was complaining about the high cost of living. Things are very expensive. Then William Ruto says now prices are down. It is so simple in economic terms. When you have inflation, you just tap liquidity. You tap the market, you remove money from the market. So you raise interest rates, central bank. So you remove liquidity. But when you remove liquidity, now everybody says they have no money in their pocket. Things are very bad. Goods are there, they're still high, they have no money there because you create recession. And you fast-paced recession. Recession was always there. In other words, the growth of a nation. You stop it, you stunt it, you start going down. And the only way to solve that problem when you have those two twin devils is to reduce taxation. So you give leeway. This government cannot reduce taxation because 80% of it is going towards an item called debt. And William Ruto is so afraid of debt default because it is even more painful. He's so afraid. He's so afraid of even calling it odious and cutting it off because that means an investigation and he doesn't want to be found and they all don't want to be found. They are so afraid of all the options. So I can tell you, even if today you gave him peace, I don't even know why he's still in office. The man should just stand up and say, Mimi nimeshindwa, asanteni sana, let us call a general election. Other people can do this. They have greater ideas than I do to solve this. This has happened to other people in the world. You get to a stage where you cannot solve the problems. You even, the UK, you had a prime minister, you had 3 prime ministers in 1 year because they could not solve this problem. The liquidity out of COVID in the UK, they literally printed money and they could solve it. Now, if we are to be honest, and Ruto is to be honest with himself, he cannot solve this problem. No matter what he talks, he cannot solve it because he's too tied in it. Don't waste Kenya's time. There are always other people who can do this. Get out of the way. Exit honorably. Usher us through another general election where now Kenyans are listening to the issue. They're not being cheated by marupurupu and goodies to be given. There's no goodies here. We have a problem to solve because if we solve this problem, our greatness begins. And I say our greatness because it was just interrupted. We were on our way to our greatness, it was interrupted. Our greatness begins. Allow those that the people feel can solve their problem to sit there. You don't have to hang in there. There's nowhere where it says you must have a contract of 5 years.
Hang in there, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
I see my co-host Nyakundi is there. And there is a lady here who was talking about Pan-Africanism and IMF and World Bank. Maybe Nyakundi, can you bring her?
Excuse me. Hello?
Just hold on a minute, Tony. Just a minute.
Tulikuwa taka hawa kubwa kubwa. Tumegonga wangapi? Tumegonga gapi? Wote? Hata Kidiki? Leo rahisi nikekupanda kwa kiasi ngekununulia chai.
Yes. Where's that lady? Kadhomi.
Good evening, Eric and the team.
Go on.
Thank you so much for having me in this space. Just a bit about myself. I have experience in election observation. And lately in 2022, I was a campaign manager. I worked with Azimio, worked with in the side of Mount Kenya with Jubilee Party, and I did a lot of work in these elections, and I have a lot to talk about elections in Kenya because it's something I'm into, and I'm also into governance and public administration as a career. So I know you wanted me to talk about elections. I'll just go through it like real quick about what exactly happens in our Kenyan election. And I would say the only election that was a people's election in Kenya was 2002, the Kibaki Tosha election. That is the only time that Kenyans were able to get what they voted for. Moved to 2007, where we had the post-election violence, the Kibaki and Raila election. A lot of that election had local manipulation, local players, what people would call, it was a local elite that would manipulate a people's will. That was not fair election in the country. Even the Electoral Commission then, that was Kivoito then, he died saying that we do not know who won the election. I am saddened because there's no one who has come out to even write a book about the 2007-2008 election, where many Kenyans lost their lives. That was another election that has never been audited. And until today, we do not have a Kenyan election that has been audited. Most of the Kenyan elections are swept under the rugs, and we are made to believe elections have gone in a particular way. And that led to a coalition government after the post-election violence. And of course, the Ruto and Uhuru going to Hague. In 2013, we had the ticket. Another election that has never been audited. When I say this, we cannot authentically say that this particular individual won an election in Kenya, because there is no election in Kenya from 2007 where we've had servers opened. And we'll pull this quickly to 2022, the last election. But just to mention on 2013 election, where we had Akombe resigning, we had them Sandode, we had a lot of things that happened in that election. But Kenyans, we just settled down. But all in these elections, it's not a people's election. In 2013, coming down, our elections have been manipulated externally in a big way. Manipulated, it's a long process. It starts from the funding of IEBC. It starts from monitoring the country a couple of years before the election. Programs, they call them civic education, foreign funded, but these are small ways of programming Kenyan elections. And we pull it all the way to 2022, and people have been asking me, Mary, how do you know this? I have been in this field as an observer, and I've been studying a lot and following the money. Most of the money that comes to IEBC from the development partners, UNDP, it's money that is meant to sway the directions of these Kenyan elections. And even to be brief and to go to exactly in the 2022 elections, you saw the Azimio went to Chatham House, but what the media tells us is, of course, the European Union, the Western world is taking care of their interests. But that's not what happens. That's where they're doing an interview of who is to be the president of what country. And now speaking about Kenya. And they qualify these people on how easily they can manipulate them and buy them in their history. And unfortunately, the Azimio team has not been very lucky in being the anointed people. So these are the team which is easily manipulated, which can carry an agenda. The Western agenda in Kenya was anointed for this election. So elections in Kenya start from the very end. They know who they want. They start working backwards. And the media plays a big role in this. Propaganda plays a big role in this, because narratives are set and then we work backwards to the people. One of the elections, these 2022 elections, and I don't know if one day we will ever be able to audit a Kenyan election, because what we get as leadership in this country is not what Kenyans elected. And I will shock you by telling you, high-level campaign secretariats know where the government is headed to. You must have had, like, I come from Mount Kenya. In Mount Kenya, we used Jubilee Party. And members of parliament that are vying, utasikia wakisema, serikali inaenda pande gani. It's not everyone who has this information. And for you get the ticket of the side where the government is going. Usually, it is not who is popular. It is who has been anointed to be the leader. That's why everyone was scampering for a UDA ticket. All the Jubilee people, they just jumped to this other side and got tickets. Actually, bought tickets. They just buy these tickets to secure getting another term in parliament. And what I would say, if you study the Cherera for what they were talking about, the results of 2022. But because the country is highly charged, people don't listen to the details. But for example, Kiambu County had an excess of 500,000 votes on one county. You know, these things are very small. They're not going to sway an entire election. Let's not look at them. But those things could. No one has ever looked keenly or talked about Smartmatic and how it is diverted and changed, or a logarithm is set to change